Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. Kyle making me laugh as I'm supposed to read the intro. Kyle Dvorchak, of course, here. Denny Carter here. Patrick Daugherty is here. That's me. We're going to break down the entire Week 6 slate, not including Thursday Night Football, which we previewed on Tuesday. Kyle and I, check it out if you have not already listened. But Denny, Kyle, and I were going to talk about Lions at Chiefs. We have a red-blooded American 52.5 game total. We have Caleb Williams and the Bears coming off bye to face the Commanders team. Finally getting a little healthier, though maybe not with Terry McLaurin. Bills visiting Atlanta. Atlanta, huge win right before their Week 5 bye. All those games and more. But we would be remiss if we did not begin the show by checking in on a football legend where everything is fine. Bill Belichick in North Carolina. I know there's been a lot of speculation, everyone talking about like what's going on. Well, what's going on is UNC said they're fully committed to Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick said he's fully committed to UNC. I don't see the problem.
Check the socials.
Yeah, check the socials. Check the posts. Everything's fine.
I mean, don't check what the reporters are saying. They seem to have different opinions, but check specifically the whatever Bill Belichick social media intern has told UNC to post from their football account.
That's right.
That is, I think, a really promising post.
Right. It tells you everything you need to know as a fan. Obviously, it's over for Bill.
Listen, guys, any team could play Clemson, which has not had a good offense since 2018, and immediately surrender a 75-yard trick play touchdown in the first play of the game. Any team could get just outwardly disrespected by the University of, like, I don't know if you guys watched this game. Clemson was seriously like, I was like, after the 11th successful trick play, I was like, listen, I know they're working. And I know we complain about like the Eagles and the Bills not trying to score as many points as possible, but like this is getting a little unseemly.
It is.
We know you can hit the triple flea flicker reverse easily for a 62-yard touchdown. Just maybe it's a bit excessive at this point, though, Clemson.
You know what strikes me? Not that I'm like out here like grinding Tar Heels tape or anything, but I've watched.
Bill isn't apparently.
Yeah, not even Bill.
I've watched like good portions of 3 games of theirs, and it's pretty clear that no players know Bill Belichick, and he doesn't know any of the players.
Well, did you hear? This is not a joke. During UNC's bye, he went to Nantucket, and the assistant coach was like, couldn't get a hold of him. Like,
yeah,
dude,
I read this one.
I don't know if you've heard of college football.
What?
It is not the NFL.
Really?
Yes. Went to Nantucket Island.
I mean, like on the sideline during the game. I mean, honestly, he doesn't need to be there. Like he could just be doing something else. Like, no, he's not doing anything. The players are not coming up to him, talking to him. He's not talking to them. I don't really understand what the point of this is.
I just will say I'm going to steal the final word here and genuinely not allow you guys to jump in because we don't have time. It is driving me crazy seeing like, listen, what you can't help how old you are, but seeing like 23-year-old Zoomers say, BB was a fraud all along. It was Brady from the beginning. To 2003, Tom Brady was the reason, they were a dynasty. Like, brother, I was there. I can assure you, 2003, Tom Brady was not the reason they were winning their second Super Bowl in 3 years, then third and fourth the following year. There's so much revisionist history going on, and I know you guys both agree with me. And so it's just time
no, we don't.
They do not agree with me. They agree that we are really looking forward to Lions at Chiefs. Fresh off losing the kind of crazy game they would have easily won a season ago, Kyle, the Chiefs return home to Kansas City for one of the highest totaled games of the year. The Lions arrive in town with a skyscraping 52.5 over-under. Kyle, you joked on Tuesday this would typically be a time to smash the under. But can the outdoor Lions actually shoot this game out? Or are we just going to end up with a disappointing slog, not get the fantasy points we were hoping for, we are frankly dying for?
Yeah, this type of game from, I'm going to call it like 2012 to 2020 is like they're only giving it a 56 total, easiest over I've ever seen. And something switched in 2021, and every single game be like 48.5. You'll never score 48.5, and they really didn't. I do think this one where is a situation where the total makes sense. I do believe that 52.5 is the right number, which, to be fair, I mostly believe for all totals. But in this spot specifically, the Lions are down multiple defensive starters. They have faced the 11th highest pass rate over expected, which isn't a great number, but it's literally above average. They're 9th in EPA per play against the pass, which again, they're good against the pass. They're even better against the run. They're 5th in EPA per play against the run. If you're telling me if there's a way to beat this Lions defense that is banged up specifically in their secondary, kind of everywhere, but more recently in their secondary, it's going to be through the pass. I don't think you have to tell Mahomes and Andy Reid twice, like passing is the way to win this game. They've pretty much, even as they've been a very boring team for the past 2 or 3 years, they have been boring, but absurdly pass first, because as much as they are dinking and dunking their way down the field, that is still superior to the awful run game they've tried to. I mean, they're not trying to run it out anymore. So I do think the Chiefs are at least going to do their best and put up a very pass-friendly showing in this game.
Yeah, 300-yard Patrick Mahomes game. Ever heard of it? Oh, that's right. Week 5. He's all the way back, Denny Carter. So yeah, Pat Mahomes, currently sitting as the QB3 by average fantasy points, largely due to his rushing. Kyle broke that down really, really well on Tuesday. But what is your take on what kind of Mahomes we will get, not just for this game, but the final 2/3 of the fantasy season?
Part of the reason Mahomes was bad for fantasy over the past couple of years and the Chiefs were boring as hell on offense is because their defense was so good, right? And so that it's not totally collapsed, but it definitely has regressed as far as especially stopping the run. And so that means that Mahomes has to step on the pedal occasionally. And he's gone into like, it's all on me mode, like Jordan mode, obviously, which is pretty cool for fantasy. Only Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts have more rushing attempts than Mahomes. He's averaging almost 7 yards per carry. Not bad, as I have in my notes here. So yeah, I mean, you're starting, you're feeling pretty good. I mean, look, the injuries in the Detroit secondary, Mahomes could go off here.
Kind of wish Rashee Rice was already back for this game, and we could maybe see like full-blown pyrotechnic Chiefs football, but he's not. He's coming back in week 7. One more game without Rashee Rice. And Denny, Kyle was not ready to declare it Brashard Smith's season on Tuesday. Might you be a little more daring? Just more and more people. I got stopped on the street. Like, hey, Rotopack. Like, I heard they're bringing back the Jerick McKinnon role. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. It kind of looks like they might be. But yeah, hey, have a nice day. Denny, is this happening?
The Zoomers call it the Samaje P. Ryan role, by the way. But yeah, no, and it's funny because the bus driver at my kid's bus stop actually stopped me and asked the same thing. Is it Brashard season as he drove away? And I said, no.
Oh, man.
It's Kareem Hunt season. It always has been. It always will be.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Look, he has 4 inside the 5 carries this year. Pacheco has 0. Brashard Smith has 0. So he gets all the touchdowns. The other guys work between the 20s. I mean, unless I'm looking at like the wrong stats here, Brashard Smith only ran 4 routes.
Guess how many passes he caught on him? 3. They were prioritizing getting him the ball when he runs a route. Their specialty Brashard routes. The Jerick McKinnon role, by the way, set the single season record for running back receiving touchdowns.
All right, that's my stat. I use that over the summer.
I know, I took it from you.
You can't use that against me.
I actually couldn't remember where I got that from.
That's a good
tied it too. Some guy in the 80s or 60s has 10 as well. Brashard
Smith is a guy who in deeper formats you hold on to for dear life because you just don't know. Like it's all it takes is one thing, a little ankle tweak from Pacheco or Hunt, and you're in possibly. So don't see him as an expendable player right now. Keep him on your bench.
Real quick, I mean, anything to say about the Lions? There's just kind of not a lot to say about the Lions.
They have like an ancillary receiver who's a total bust that you guys like.
That is my
game
environment where JMO might go off.
Yeah,
this is for sure. This is a good buy the spot.
This is the thing. You can't bench JMO in this game. You just can't. There's going to be too many points. But man, this guy stinks at commanding targets. It's going
to be even funnier when he busts in a game with a 52.5 point total.
I think JMO is going to go full Ridley mode where this is his last chance this game. He will bust in this game. Everyone finally gives up like they did on Ridley heading into week 5. Yeah. Then in week 7, JMO will finally break out. Yeah. We'll talk about it next week. Headed in the right direction before their week 5 bye. The Bears return to face the Commanders team that got headed back in the right direction as well. And Jaden Daniels is week 5 return, Denny. We'll start there. Daniels has actually yet to have a QB1 finish in 3 starts so far this season. Highest he's been is QB 13. He hasn't really been that low, any of them, but yeah, not top 12. Is this a fluke or is this something to worry about?
I'm not too worried. Just looking at the peripheral stuff, I don't see anything too alarming. He has a Jaden Daniels 12% scramble rate. That's the second highest in the league behind Jackson Dart. He's 22nd out of 32 quarterbacks in touchdown rate, only 4%. That could tick up. I mean, it's much lower than it was last year. 4% isn't crazy low, but it's definitely low for him. So, I mean, does it take Terry McLaurin being back as like the downfield guy in order to hit some of those splash plays? Maybe. I would like to see more design runs, but maybe they're protecting him right now. It's in that way it's concerning as far as him being like an elite option, like a Hurts style option.
That happened
and then also
last year when he took, I want to say it was I think it was a rib, like the iconic Jaden Daniels rib hit that he took in college. Took one of those and missed most of, like, he got hurt in the first quarter and left in somewhere in the like week 6 to 8 range. And for the next 2 or 3 weeks, they did actually ease up on the design stuff too. And it came back later in the season. But to your point, I actually do think the almost Occam's razor here is they are protecting him a little bit.
It would be cool if he kept a read option once in a while. We'd like to see that.
I know that would be really, really cool. Or he's going to hand it off, Kyle. Hand it off to JCM. Did JCM season finally begin in earnest in week 5? Like you mentioned on Tuesday, he actually saw touches on the first 2 design scripts, the design series of the game. As I wrote in my article, he finally played north of 40% of the snaps. I think he still did not get to 50. But finally opening things up a little bit for JCM. Is JCM season, Kyle, beginning?
Yeah, I think he literally hit 50% snap share on the dot, which isn't a great number for a running back, but it's pretty good when you lead the league in rush yards over expected per carry, straight up yards per carry, PFF rushing grade. He gets up to 61% of the team's carries, which is to say he doesn't play a ton of snaps. He's not playing a workhorse level of snaps, but anytime he's on the field, or at least disproportionately when he's on the field, they're giving him carries. And even ran 38% of the routes, which for a guy who is not known, really did not catch quite literally any passes in college. I think he got like 8 combined passes over his final season plus 1 game of college football. He's getting enough of the work and is good, not good enough, is great enough on the ground that I don't quite want to just jump him back into the RB2 ranks, because he saw 14 carries in his season high in rush attempts. That's a pretty underwhelming season high. But it is the most recent game in which, like you said, they did make a meaningful change in how they used him. Let's live a little. Let's put him in the top 24. Can we do that, Pat? Did you do that?
I did put him in the top 24. Part of it, Bears defense, it's not good against anything. It's coughed up the 4th most running back fantasy points, I believe. And this running back right now, I mean, it's just not great. The RB2-3 borderline is populated by guys like Michael Carter, like DeAndre Swift, who hasn't done anything, Chase Brown, who hasn't done anything, Tony Pollard, who hasn't done anything, Zach Charbonnet, Ramondre Stevenson, and just talk about Occam's razor. Occam's razor is the guy needs more work. They gave him more work in week 5. He remained efficient on more work, 150 yards from scrimmage. Like at certain points, like, all right, like I know he's a rookie, but C-Rod season didn't really pan out. Let's get on to the real football season now. Play your best player.
Could be in a blow-up spot, by the way, if you look at how bad the Bears have been against the run. I know you just referenced that, Pat, but Bears giving up a league high rate of rush yards before contact, and the Commanders create a lot of rush yards before contact. So he could be running wild, even if he only gets 15 carries. Which
Bears, by the way, Denny, allowing 164 rushing yards per game. This is not a joke. They're allowing 6.2 yards per carry.
That's a lot.
So JCM is a must start this week, unless you have the deepest team in fantasy existence. So then on the other side, though, Denny, game totals hovering around 50. We want this to shoot out. As I referenced, the Bears, Caleb Williams are playing well heading into their week 5 bye, but is Caleb actually playing well, and can he keep it up? And what looks like a good matchup, Commanders' pass defense has been struggling.
I couldn't come up with a definitive answer as to whether he's getting away with it or what, but here's what I have, and maybe, to each his own, or in the eye of the beholder, things of that nature. He has, so Caleb Williams through week 5 has one of the lowest rates of turnover-worthy throws per PFF. He's taken a sack on only 13% of his pressures this season.
Both those stats sound fake. Well, there's no way that's the same player.
Right. Well, he's taken a sack on 13%. Last year, it was almost 30%. Totally different. In other words, I think Ben Johnson has drilled it in Caleb's head that, like, you gotta throw it, buddy. You gotta drop back and throw the ball. And that's not what he was doing last year. It's a good matchup. Washington is top 10 in completion rate over expected allowed this season. You're firing him up in 12-team leagues, feeling pretty good.
Yeah, Caleb, he's a QB1 this week. It doesn't feel great still, but QB, another just offense in general, just not feeling that great across the NFL. Caleb, like JCM's, like it might not feel natural ranking him where he is, but you have no choice really to rank Caleb Williams as a QB1. And Kyle, because he's got two really good receivers at his disposal. Only one of them has produced, though. What is the latest on Rome Odunze versus DJ Moore? Coming out of their bye, we could see adjustments.
Yeah, I mean, he's got one really good receiver. Rome's played really nice football this year. 2.1 yards per route run compared to 1.4, really poor mark, and not that much different from his 2024 mark for DJ Moore. Odunze targeted on 24% of his routes, another really strong mark, and a much, much needed improvement from year 1 to year 2 for Rome. 14% target rate for DJ Moore. Olamide Zaccheaus quite literally just has more straight up targets than DJ Moore this year. I believe it's 22 to 21, if I remember correctly. Like, I don't know what DJ Moore has left in the tank, but it's certainly through a month of football. The answer looks like not a lot. I really think
it's the coach, even though he's doing a good job. The coach has McDaniels syndrome. Like, I'll make a journeyman more effective than you. You think I can't do that?
Yeah,
you think I can't do that to you?
Guess
what I am.
Yeah. But man, at some point, like either Ben Johnson has to ease up on the like punitive, let's not get DJ Moore the ball stuff. We have to start benching DJ Moore. And right now, I'm more on team bench DJ Moore than I am thinking things are going to change anytime soon. And the biggest thing to me that should change at some point is an uptick in work for both Luther Burden and Colston Loveland, neither of which is a good thing for DJ Moore. More likely than not, those come at the expense of the less exciting Cole Kmets and Olamide Zaccheaus, but they could also potentially come at the expense of DJ Moore, even if it just means a further decrease in like the target rate when he's on the field. So I'm pretty pessimistic on DJ Moore, but in turn, like Odunze is kind of just looking like a weekly smash.
You know, we're really interested to see if there's a post-bye rookie bump, an old fantasy cliche for both Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. A little early in the season. I wish the Bears bye was a little bit later. The post-bye rookie bump.
As someone who's got a lot of 11th place teams, I needed it in week 1. We need that post-bye bump for these guys ASAP.
It's a very real thing, and we're hoping it's real, Denny.
Want to mention Cole Kmet, absolutely miserable in the Bears last game, like drops, like the missed blocks, horrible stuff. So if you have Colston Loveland like a 14-team league and he's playing this week, you maybe toy around with the idea of playing him.
That sounded personal with Kmet Nation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're a Kmet guy. He's absolutely wretched.
He's good doesn't come to mind with Cole Kmet. Reeling from their first loss of the season, the Bills head to Atlanta, Georgia to face a rested Falcons team coming off by Kyle. Is it fair to say this is the Bills team refusing to open the offense up? This has been a hobby horse of mine. I don't even know if it's anywhere even close to true. Was that an issue in their loss to the Patriots? I just feel like they're going Eagles mode. Like we're getting one lead and then we're sitting on it. Mm-hmm. Is this a fair criticism or am I imagining this?
So I think anytime you have Josh Allen and you don't finish top 2 or 3 in pass rate over expected, I personally find you to be doing something wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Almost like 85% of all plays on a team with Josh Allen as the quarterback should run through Josh Allen in some capacity, run or pass. And they're not doing that. But to their credit, they're actually above average in pass rate over expected. They're slightly above neutral, but not a ton of teams right now are above even 0%. They're also above average in early down pass rate after you throw out garbage time. Again, they're not massively above average, but I do think they're at least not, I would not comp them to the Eagles, right? They could be doing more. When you have Josh Allen, you could always be giving Josh Allen the ball more, but I don't think they're doing this thing where they're intentionally taking the ball out of his hands, which at times it has felt like they've done that, and at times it does feel like the Eagles do that a lot, frankly, with Jalen Hurts. Last week, in terms of why they lost to the Patriots, I don't want to say it was fluky, right? The Patriots earned that win, but it was stuff that was like, very small things that happened that were disproportionately impactful, specifically 3 turnovers, 1 inside the opponent's 10, 1 inside their own 10, and I think 1 right about the 50. They also had at least 1 sack on 3rd down as well. So it was small mistakes that were amplified by either field location or timing of the mistake. They actually played relatively pass first. I think they had like a 4% positive pass rate over expected in that game specifically. So I don't think the reason they lost was because they shut Josh Allen down or anything. I think they conceded mistakes and the Patriots just took really strong advantage of those very, very grave mistakes.
Bills play as if the goal is to score 50 points. Denny, the whispers about Michael Penix's viability as a franchise QB were already intensifying before a much-needed 300-yard game against the Commanders in Week 4. Was that game an aberration or maybe a preview of things to come for a young player who we know can really sling it around the yard?
Well, the Falcons did not change much structurally in that game. Still one of the lowest rates of play action, which is pretty incredible considering you have Bijan Robinson, or as he's calling himself now, Bijan Robinson.
Hold on.
Wait, really?
What?
No.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, you guys are way behind.
We're back to Bijan finally.
He had a bad game.
All right. Wow.
And so we're waiting for the next good game to change. He actually said in an interview with Ian Rappaport, this is not a bit, okay? He said, say it however you want, whatever makes you happy. That's what he said.
Okay.
Well, he still wants it to be Bijan.
And Denny pronounced it Tyler Algier.
No, because Rappaport did a gotcha on him, and
nice.
He played a clip of Robinson. I'll just call him Robinson.
Sure.
Reading his name for I think the Monday Night Football reel where they say their name in their college, and he said Bijan. He said Bijan.
We got to give Denny more weeks off because he's doing capital J journalism in the offseason. This is great.
This is making me more confused. The Falcons.
Anyway, they stink. They're still no play action. They were 13% below their expected pass rate on early downs against Washington in Week 4, which is wild. They had been 10% below on their expected pass rate on early downs, so they actually got more run heavy in Week 4. Michael Penix's ADOT jumped from 7.5 going into that game to 10.5 in Week 4. That's good. They put Drake London in the slot more, and that helped the EPA machine go burr. And I think that's the key here.
Something that could also help, well-timed bye for the Falcons. I think a lot of times teams don't like the early season bye. Drake London was super banged up. Darnell Mooney was super banged up. Yeah. Maybe just things are much better now, much healthier in this Falcons offense, and they kind of more hit the ground running. I have Michael Penix ranked as kind of a priority QB2 this week. We'll see how that goes for me. So, Kyle, you said the Bills are doing less wrong than I was accusing them of. So which of their pass catchers do we actually want to start right now? Because they're just kind of all cannibalizing each other, playing important real-life roles. It's like, do we even want to start Khalil Shakir? Do we even want to start Keon Coleman? Who do we want to start?
All right. The first question, I feel like you set me up to kind of knock it out of the park. You had an assertion, which I actually had like a counterpoint to. This one, like, there's nothing. I don't have strong answers to this one. They don't have a single player on this team with a target share north of 20%. And even the tight end, who's putting up really good efficiency numbers, is in a three-way committee with blocking tight end Jackson Hawes, who's like essentially an extra lineman. He's a really good blocker, but also sometimes gets targets and run routes. And then Dawson Knox, who's like they really have a Charmander situation of like, this guy doesn't run any routes and isn't a pass catcher. This guy's some routes, and this guy's only routes. And the only routes guy is obviously Dalton Kincaid. I think anytime that you play a position as underwhelming as tight end and you're catching passes from Josh Allen and you're really efficient, we can kind of throw the role out the window to some degree, because all you need to do is check like one of these boxes to be a tight end one. He checks two of them. As far as the receivers go, I mean, it's just pray you get a touchdown from Khalil Shakir, who leads the team in red zone targets, or Keon Coleman, who I believe leads the team in end zone targets specifically, so targets thrown into the end zone. But it's a crapshoot.
Well, Keon Coleman, he seems like the classic. You might need a shootout. Game total is around 50. So maybe you're really hurting. You can at least construct a Keon Coleman wide receiver 4 case this week. Dalton Kincaid, by the way, so he's had 2 60-yard games in the past 3 weeks. He had only one all of last year. He's 14th in tight end targets. So hopefully he just maintains like hyper efficiency, which maybe is possible in this offense with this quarterback, but there still could be, a valley coming after this recent Dalton Kincaid peak. So maybe don't get out over your skis on Dalton Kincaid. Acing every test so far, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers host the 49ers as field goal home favorites. Denny Carter, did we see enough in Week 5 to declare it Rachaad White season for the time being? Bucky Irving, they're going through the motions of pretending he might play, but it seems very much going through the motions. Does not seem like he's going to play.
Yeah, he's not playing, and all my teams are dead. So last week, White ran 55% of the routes against the Seahawks. He was targeted on 20% of those routes. That led to 4 catches. That's pretty good. Okay, it's not great, but it's fine. He had 14 of 17 running back carries against the Seahawks for 2.9 yards per carry, but we can overlook that. He's a starter. I mean, he's definitely top 24, right, Pat? You have him top 24?
Yeah. I couldn't even remember what you're talking about. Yeah, top 20, like RB, like 17 or 18. Okay. Rachaad White.
It's a bad week. He's RB6, buddy.
So,
Yeah.
Rico Dowdle is in the top 12, so I can say Rachaad White, RB16. Denny Carter.
Rachaad White or Saquon is my question. It's a decent matchup. San Francisco gives up a top 10 rate of rush yards before contact and is 6th in missed tackles per rush. So it's a way better spot, I would say, for White than against the Seahawks. That was a nasty matchup.
Yeah, we saw what we needed. Over 80% of the snaps. Sean Tucker mixed in for 6 touches, but touch domination for Rachaad White. Not an amazing player, but this is an RB2 role, and like a safe RB2 role. So Rachaad White, you're feeling good about him. Denny laid it out well. Kyle, what's the state of the 49ers? Who is actually playing? Who can we actually start? Kendrick Bourne, Jake Tunges. It seems like Purdy, Pearsall. I asked you, but it seems like Purdy, Pearsall, Juwan Jennings all out again. I have Kendrick Bourne ranked uncomfortably high. How do we feel about our fill-in 49ers?
Yeah, so I agree with you. We had Purdy, Jennings, Pearsall all did not practice. I don't believe George Kittle's practice window has been opened yet. He looks like he's out at least one more week. So we are down to truly the replacements. Also, Mac Jones a little dinged up with a knee injury.
Mac Jones was like going to the hospital like every other snap in that game last week.
He was eating bananas on the sideline for potassium because he was cramping up.
But he's playing though. The thing is, he was, I believe, limited in practice. I believe like this morning, John Lynch said he should be okay. So he's playing, and he's played really well. Like all deserved credit for.
He's better. It's fine. He's fine. He's better than Birdie. It's fine.
Look, I'm not saying he's better. Am I saying he's better for $4 million wherever they're paying? No, tough to say. So
Denny,
go ahead, Denny. Slander him. Go ahead. Destroy him.
If you throw out the 49ers bye week and you have the last 3 Mac Jones starts, he leads the NFL in passing yards.
Yeah. He's averaging, I think, 301 or 302 right now. I think 2 touchdowns a game as well. He's a legit borderline QB1. The fact that I think if they get pressure on him, he can probably be rattled more easily than Brock Purdy. He's not a runner. Brock Purdy got a little frisky on the ground last year. I think he's probably not as good of a fantasy bet as Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
but he looks similar enough that I think we can call him a top 15. I don't know if quite QB1, but it's not.
I'm in that 15 to 17 range. Kidding aside, I don't think he's better than Brock Purdy. As you said, he's definitely a better relative value. And that Shanahan not head faked himself. Who even knows what this era of 49ers football had been if they had just taken Mac Jones instead of Trey Lance. But
sorry, quick wrap up on the pass catchers. I didn't even mention them because we were having so much fun with the Mac Jones conversation. Both Jake Tunges and Kendrick Bourne saw 11 targets last week. Both of them played full-time roles. It is what it is. This is what streaming fantasy football looks like, folks. You get Kendrick Bourne's 11 targets and you're happy about it.
No, yeah, he's a wide receiver 3. I don't really see how you can call him anything else this week. And people are kind of resisting that fate. Maybe it could be a Demarcus Robinson pop-up game, but you catch 10 passes. And a guy who had been productive in this offense, it was a long time ago. You pay attention to that. Denny, I guess this is kind of a pointless question. You don't even have to spend much time on this. Is Emeka Egbuka just a set and forget wide receiver 1? Chris Godwin, wasn't sure about his status when I wrote the show sheet. Certainly looking like he's out for week 6. I will say Godwin's the kind of guy coming off major injury. They could just give him a week off practice and he might play.
Sure.
But is Emeka Egbuka wide receiver 1? What's going on with Chris Godwin?
Yeah, he is. He's getting away with it, but that might be because he's good. Averaging 18 yards per catch, his 3rd highest in the NFL. He's only being targeted on 22% of his routes, which that's
doesn't matter if they're playing real football, actually targeting him down the field.
It's not like wide receiver 1 stuff. Typically, but Egbuka is so good it doesn't matter. By the way, Godwin over the past 2 weeks, 19% target share. His yards per route run is 0.8.
Yikes! Yeah, Godwin, you got to keep it locked to Rotor. We just don't know what's going on there. If he sits out, Sterling Shepard, desperation wide receiver 4. Cade Otton might even do something. I don't know.
Sure, buddy.
Cade Otton. Traded Baker straight up for Cade Otton Dynasty last year because I needed, as always, never have I not needed a George Kittle replacement. And it worked out for 1 week, and I've been haunted.
No wonder you get so worked up every time Kittle gets hurt. I could never figure that out. We just cracked the case, folks.
Yeah, I know. He's been screwing me for years in Dynasty. Coming off one of the best rushing efforts in NFL history, Panthers running back Rico Dowdle has promised will be tied the Cowboys team to let him go in free agency, Kyle. Provided Chuba Hubbard sits again with his calf injury, he's not practicing. Is Dowdle an RB1 for week 6? I say that he is. Woe betide the Cowboys. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, 3.5 points as a spread isn't even that big of a spread. It's certainly not one where, if it holds true, you would expect the Panthers to be forced to throw the football. They've actually been like a slightly pass-first team, but I do think, given what Rico did last week, wouldn't be surprised if it convinces them to run the football a little bit more. Certainly, it convinced me that they should run the football a little more. Fantasy and bio, indeed. But man, Rico looks good. He should not have been signed for the measly
maybe the Kansas City Chiefs could have signed Rico Dowdle. Yeah. Just an idea.
Yeah, and it's a good matchup for literally however you want to try and score points against the Cowboys, because they are, in fact, a bottom 5 unit in EPA allowed through the air, but they're a bottom 10 unit in EPA allowed on the run as well. They are probably better taken advantage of through the air. When you have Bryce Young, I do think there's some push and pull between how much do we want to attack through the air versus how much do we want to take stuff off Bryce Young's plate, because he's had his moments this year. He's also had moments where I thought he was getting benched easily. So I do think a run, at least a balanced approach, makes sense on all fronts, on the protecting Bryce Young front and on the Rico Dowdle looks awesome front.
Rico did say, they know I'm coming. And my absolute favorite anecdote of the Young season so far is that Rico Dowdle matter-of-factly told his teammates that he was going to go for 180 on the Dolphins and then win for 200. Yes. Awesome. JC Horn said after the game, he said he was going to go for 180. Then he went for 206.
He had to do it to him.
He did. He had to do it to him. And he's got to do it to the Cowboys even more. Denny, Jalen Tolbert had a pop-up game. Then it was Ryan Flournoy's turn. Is there anything actually interesting here in the underlying data, or is this just role players kind of rotating while the superstar CeeDee Lamb is out?
I wrote a lot about Flournoy in the regression files because
sounds healthy. It sounds like a good use of your time.
Yeah. I wanted to know. I wanted to understand what happened in that game. It's weird, he was targeted on 44% of his routes last week. Tolbert was targeted on 5% of his routes. But Flournoy only ran half the routes in the offense, and Tolbert led the Cowboys in pass routes. So, Tolbert is getting cardio, which is good. But Flournoy was actually being targeted heavily. I tend to think that we're going to see Flournoy get a little bump in playing time, and, could be interesting.
This is not a joke. Over the summer in the Dynasty League that Denny quit many moons ago, Kyle joined last year. I did not want to drop Ryan Flournoy. So the Cowboys need these targets. I don't know why I didn't want to drop him. Then I kept coming back to, and he's also already 25 years old. Then he had this 100-yard game. You guess who won the bidding for Ryan Flournoy this week? He's back where he belongs.
Oh man, I put in a bid for him. That's a
shame. You didn't get him. I did. Kyle, any Panthers to care about beyond Teteroa, McMillan, and Rico Dowdle? Jalen Coker appears he's going to make his 2025 debut in this game against a really, really bad Dallas Cowboys defense.
Yeah, I had the two names that you had. It's just Rico and T-Mac for me. I do think Coker should be added in all formats, but he's coming off of injured reserve and he's practicing in full, but we just don't know what his role is going to look like. I think over the long run, his role should look like a starting receiver. He looked not only just compared to Xavier Legette, it's kind of easy to look good compared to Xavier Legette last year, but just stacked up to the entire rookie class. Was one of the most efficient rookies in the NFL last year. And that's coming from a player who our expectations should have been frankly, they should have been don't make the roster. Most UDFAs don't make the roster. The team was not going into week 1 thinking, how can we scheme up looks for Jalen Coker? I don't think he played till week 3 or 4. So he had to earn every single target he got, which Legette's in some capacity the opposite, right? They're trying to find ways to make Legette work. They probably are not doing that as much with Coker. He was still awesome. That being said, I mentioned it's his first game back from IR. I don't think you can remotely consider playing him. I think he should also be rostered in every format, even more shallow ones, because he looked really good last year.
He did. It probably won't pan out, but anytime a receiver enters the fray who could actually command targets independent of injury, it's such a rarity on the waiver wire. Jalen Coker has to be rostered just from that perspective alone. And, Bryce looked a little better down the stretch last year. Maybe his struggles are just that he's had no one to throw it to. And now a shallow skill core gets deepened a bit. Do not start Jalen Coker this week. Keep listening when we come right back after this. 2 storied programs battle under the lights at the Coliseum. It's Michigan at USC on Big Ten Saturday night. We'll take you up to kickoff in California at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. USC going to get exposed.
I was going to say 2 Big Ten staples right there. Big Ten legends, Michigan, U of M, and USC.
It's your grandfather's USC.
Producer Adam agrees that USC is going to get exposed. He says, "Big USC going to get worked." Oh, man, I love this, but you got to watch it still. You still got to watch the game. You got to watch him get worked. Yeah. It is. Lincoln Riley, future NFL QB's coach. It's going to be great. Okay, where do we go? I can barely read my intro to this one. Chugging down the tracks. The Colts are touchdown home favorites against the Cardinals team that derailed in week 5. Denny Carter.
You were really feeling yourself on this one.
Adam says, I'm reading a children's story. Colts are looking like such a good real-life team, Denny. But
how little team that could is what we're calling them.
Yes, that's true. I haven't used that one in a while. I used to use the little shootout that could quite frequently. How excited are we really, though, Denny, to be starting guys like Daniel Jones, Michael Pittman, maybe even Josh Downs? Daniel Jones kind of fallen out of the top 12, still been really efficient. Still seems like he deserves better returns. Michael Pittman kind of living off touchdowns. Already surpassed last year's touchdown total.
Yeah. I liked it better when Daniel Jones was getting at least 2 rushing attempts inside the 5-yard line every week. That was my preference. And now he's not. And so he's like a floor play without the rushing stuff. Also, the Colts are never pushed because they're just world beaters right now. I mean, they're just a dominant football team. They're going to crush the Cardinals here. I think you playing Jones maybe in if you're like really desperate in 12-team leagues, but he's a nice super flex.
He's a must play. He's almost in the top 12. It's partly because of how bad this quarterback is in general. And I feel like Daniel Jones, not necessarily from an attempts perspective, Denny, is a positive regression candidate just in that he's on an elite team and seemingly an elite offense, and that just by virtue of his environment, it's going to have some better fantasy games, but he has not been having them.
The Cardinals are, per the metrics, good enough against the run to make me think that the Colts might, in neutral game script, might ease off Jonathan Taylor a little bit. Obviously, you're starting Taylor; he's going to score 100 points, whatever. But I think there might be a little more drop back offense for the Colts this week. They have a 60% neutral pass rate, so it's not like they're like giga run heavy. Could be good for Pittman. You just need the Cardinals to keep pace. Honestly, you got to have that because otherwise it's 30 touches for Taylor and everybody else suffers.
Kyle looks like he's ready to go there.
Boy, do I have good news for you. Jacoby Brissett's going to keep up the pace. And I was saying it ironically, but then I was like, maybe he does keep up the pace, dude. I frankly don't know. Kyler's just played very uninspiring football. I say this,
Kyle, just to lay it out in case listeners don't know, Kyler's missed 2 practices, so it looks like it's trending toward Jacoby Brissett season.
Yeah, 2 DNPs with, I believe, a foot issue. We haven't seen the official report Thursday, but I think Adam Schefter reported he's not practicing. That puts him really on the wrong side of questionable. I think at this point you assume Jacoby Brissett is the starter, and maybe something changes from here till Sunday morning or whatever.
I'm sure Kyler will push through. that was kind of a low blow. But,
Well, it's a low blow because he's shorter than you, buddy. So.
Come on.
All right. In all seriousness, I think even if Kyler starts, he's probably not particularly playable. He's the QB 23 in fantasy points per game. His rushing output is actually the same, slightly higher, not by a meaningful amount, than it has been in years past, but the passing output just continues to fall off a cliff. He's on pace for like a career low ADOT. He just is devolving more and more to this. I don't say check down Merchant because Merchant implies that he's getting away with it. It's not really getting away with it. So in terms of what it means for his pass catchers, it's been, I'll say, like kind of bad for Marv so far. He's only the wide receiver 32 in expected fantasy points, wide receiver 37 in target share. He's been decent this year. His ADOT has come down ever so slightly. It's helped a bit in terms of yak production, in terms of forcing missed tackles, but it still ultimately is a pretty frustrating field stretcher role that I don't think makes him worthy of a wide receiver 2 ranking. That is all with Kyler in there. And I will say, if anyone's just going to be like, I don't know, big dude's down there somewhere, Jacoby Brissett fits that bill.
Yeah,
like he has a bit of that, I don't even say gunslinger mentality, just a little bit of that, like not going to check it down, going to seek some big play.
Well, it's because he stands in the pocket longer than basically any quarterback in the history of the NFL. Colts are top 5 or 6 in sacks. So
listen. No, Kyle's onto something. Brissett could unlock MHJ.
I also say this.
Let's be clear. It's an upgrade. It to happen. Yeah, it's an upgrade. I mean, let's just be frank. I feel like only the coaches can get Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball. They can scheme him the ball early in the game. I'm a little undercut by Kyler finally started getting him the ball in the second half of that Thursday night game a few weeks ago. But I would like to see Marvin Harrison play just with any other quarterback and maybe give us a little better idea. Like, is this Kyler? Is this the receiver? Is this the coaches?
It's going to be a good litmus test either way. That's a very good point. It's like, sure, maybe it doesn't work out for him, right? But it will tell us a lot about what the situation is between Kyler's style and Marv's style, which don't seem to be meshing. Maybe it's not, though. It could very well be a Marv target earning problem. I hope, and I kind of think we will find out this week.
Denny, what were you going to say? And then follow up with how high is too high for Michael Carter?
Yeah, just real quick. MHJ was very much involved at the start of last week's game. Some drawn up plays, some scripted plays, and then totally uninvolved for the final 3 quarters.
It was bizarre,
and that's frustrating because it seems like, as much flack as I've given the poor guy, I feel like he actually might be good if he had a good quarterback. So, Michael Carter last week handled 18 of 25 running back rushing attempts for the Cardinals. You're depending on decent game script here. I don't know how reliable that is, but the Colts are low key. The Zoomers are saying a not a good rush defense. They allow a top 5 rate of rush yards before contact. Last week, Ashton Genty, almost called him Alvin, Ashton Genty, averaged almost 5 yards per carry before the game got out of hand. So it's not a great spot. It's not as good a spot as it was last week for Michael Carter, but it's still fine. I think that you can still get away with it.
I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to read a line from my own article because I liked it so much about Michael Carter. It said, how did Michael Carter's first game in place of James Conner and Trey Benson go? Well, the head coach was fined $100,000 for punching his back up. Michael Carter might be in good standing, although Amari DiMercato might have been playing the ultimate long game. I'm going to get punched, and then I'm going to get pity touches.
By the way, DiMercato did nothing wrong. He scored that touchdown.
Do you think he scored it? I haven't.
He did a lot wrong. No, he was one of the worst plays I've seen in the history of the NFL. 2 of the league's hardest to figure, apparently good teams, the Seahawks and Jaguars, square off in Jacksonville. Duval with a total around 47. Jags getting around 1.5 points at home. Kyle, is Sam Darnold showing enough to get in the streamer mix, or is the volume potential just too low for a guy? Man, do the computers love Sam Darnold, even now. Even out of Shandyland, I still love the guy.
I mean, speaking of guys, I guess in this case, a collection of guys the computers love, it's the Jags defense, who are, I believe, 3rd in EPA per dropback allowed. But I'm digging into the spreadsheets, right? Never seen a game of football in my life, so it takes me a lot of time to figure certain things out. I was like, why do teams, which they have so far, target the Jags with, I believe, the 2nd highest pass rate over expected when they're so good on defense, specifically against the pass, and they're kind of a middle/below average team against the run. And didn't take me long to figure out the toggle. It says turn turnovers off. And as soon as you take away their turnovers, they're a well below average team against the pass. They're a really poor success rate team too. And of course, they've earned those turnovers. I don't want to say they've been.
It's called opportunistic, Kyle.
They have been opportunistic.
Lucky.
I mean, they had probably it's a little lucky. I wrote fluky in my notes that they have. I mean, the most. It's got to be. I didn't look it up. I don't care to look it up. The most EPA flipping game or play of the season so far. Right. A 99-yard pick 6, right? And they lead the league in turnovers. I believe they lead the league in interceptions, and they don't have as many turnovers on specifically fumbles on carries either. They have forced 4 fumbles, or I believe recovered 4 fumbles, 2 of which were also on passing plays. They've made a ton of big plays, but on a down-to-down basis, they're an average to below average pass defense. And Sam Darnold, as you pointed out, is not just in the spreadsheets aren't just in love with him. He is their god. He is first place in EPA per dropback in the entire NFL. And it's not that close of a race either. He's done really well in completion percent over expected. I do think there's a spot where the Jags, every spot looks like a spot where the Jags defense regresses, because it is very hard to consistently be the best turnover producing machine in the NFL by a pretty comfortable margin too. So I think their defense is going to be a little overrated. I kind of think Darnold exposes them this week.
How dare you suggest, by the way, a team where the quarterback fell down twice and then one of the best defensive players in the NFL simply didn't tackle him on his lucky Chris Jones. Might want to pursue Trevor Lawrence there.
Where do you have Darnold in your rankings? Do you have that?
Yeah, I do. It's QB 16 or 17. Sammy Darnold. Let's see here. QB 16 exactly.
Can you read guys above him?
Sam Darnold or Justin Fields?
Fields. Okay.
Yeah, I have Fields one spot ahead of him. Sam Darnold or Jay Dart. Oh, don't do Jackson Dart. That's Thursday night. Sam Darnold or Mac Jones?
Darnold.
Darnold, yeah.
Sam Darnold, Michael Penix.
Darnold.
Easily.
Bo Nix.
Probably
Darnold.
I'm doing Bo Nix. I hate to say
Whoa,
it. Even though he's not good. Yeah. So Denny, the Jags, very lucky. What is your take on the latest BTJ and Travis Hunter data points? Both posted season high in yardage. Problem is that was 80 and 64, respectively.
Yeah, man. I mean, Travis Hunter makes one cool catch and is like, he's back. And then I look at the box score and it's like, hey, 3 targets. Come on, man. So
did you see that juke though? That double juke? That was crispy. I mean, again, 3 targets. Boy, that doesn't feel good. But it looked fun, man.
You know who had the sickest jukes ever was Kadarius.
Points per cool play. You're just dominating if you have Travis Hunter.
Not really. That was his first one.
Actually, just last week. But Hunter's average depth of target in week 5 was almost double what it was coming into the week, 15.7 against the Chiefs. But we know he was only targeted on 12% of his routes. Like I said, BTJ was targeted on 23% of his routes. He leads the team with 32 first read targets per fantasy points data suite. No one has more than 18 first read targets. So Brian Thomas Jr. is definitely the clear runaway wide receiver 1 in this offense. The Seahawks are a slight pass funnel. It could be a worse spot. I think BTJ seemed like he was close to a really big game. On Monday night, I think there was a defensive pass interference call that took away a big play, or what would have been a big play. So, you're still playing him and you're still hoping that September was as weird and he'll get back on it.
I still think a lot of it's just about learning a new offense against a hellacious defensive slate that's keeping up for a while with the Jaguars. And then maybe it just wouldn't be surprising if they, quote, got going in the second half as the schedule just gets a little bit easier. Kyle, real quick, any change in the forever war between Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet, or is it just status quo?
I mean, Walker, again, flipped Charbs and carries 10-9. So it's still truly a committee. But early in the season, I believe the first 2 weeks, he was getting out-carried straight up by Zach Charbonnet. With that being said, Zach Charbonnet still plays 35 snaps to Walker's 27 last week, gets 3 red zone carries to Walker's 2. And like I said, ran more routes, more red zone opportunities, more snaps overall. I don't want to say he's so clearly the lead back. One of them saw more carries and it was Ken Walker, but it is a true committee in which a lot of, I don't say all of, but a lot of the high value touches and snaps in which he could be getting easy PPR points, snaps in which he could be getting the touchdowns have all been going still, or at least predominantly been going to Zach Charbonnet. I think Walker's a better player. I don't really think this team cares.
Really looking forward to this game in Duval. Sorry, I'm losing it a little bit. I gotta go back to the workshop on that one. Coming off one of the biggest victories by any team all season, the New England Patriots arrive in New Orleans, Louisiana, as roughly 3.5-point favorites. Denny, we know Drake May is now an every week QB1, but is he a top 5 QB1? I do not know why this distinction matters. And what about your guy Steph Diggs? Is he back in the top 20 at wideout?
Yeah, sure. You know what? Let's throw May in the top 5. Kyle was right. Kyle said nothing wrong.
You guys don't get to throw him in the top 5. We're not accepting applicants to the Drake May fan club. I'll put him in the top 5, but
like I said, I'm enjoying him in my guillotine league, and that's about it. Unfortunately, yeah. So Stefon Diggs is doing that thing where he doesn't run all the routes, but it doesn't matter at all because he's being targeted on about half of those routes. Like that, we get that sometimes. So yeah, I mean, he's a top 20 guy week in, week out now as the only game in town for the Patriots. May's playing well. I mean, I just want to list off some stats here. He's being sacked on just 9% of his dropbacks, one of the lowest rates in the league. Only 2% of his attempts have been considered turnover worthy throws by Pro Football Focus. Like really safe, good stuff. Vrabel ball. Vrabel approves very much of what Drake May is doing.
Kyle, Kendre Miller versus Kamara. Kamara, limited practices with an ankle injury. Appears he's probably going to play. I mean, limited for a veteran. He's probably fine. But is Kendre creating his own fantasy value, or is he just hollowing out Alvin Kamara's?
Yeah, I don't really think there's much like standalone. You can play him in week 6 fantasy value we had with Kendra Miller. To his credit, 11 touches and 10 touches over the past 2 weeks, but no involvement whatsoever through the air. And that came in games in which they somewhat handily beat the Giants, and they kept it weirdly close with the Bills. They were only down 2 against Buffalo with under 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So they ended up, the Bills pulled away in the end, but it gave them 3 quarters and change to play a reasonably balanced style, and that got Kendra to double-digit touches. Maybe that happens again, right? It's not a massive spread, a field goal and half a point spread, but I do think the fact that you are solely relying on at most a dozen carries is with the floor probably being like 4 or 5 if Drake May just comes out and routes them, and no potential to catch passes. I don't think that that's really someone you want to be starting. Running back injuries have been crazy this year, at least in the past 2 or 3 weeks. They've really started to pile up. Maybe you have to start him, but you could have waivers have run. You could have found guys like Hassan Haskins or Michael Carter, or Rico Dowdle, who were clearly better starts.
Denny fantasy managers would give an arm and a leg for Travion Henderson to get a dozen touches. That's not even happening. Antonio Gibson out for the year now with a torn ACL, but Patriots coaching staff and media are talking about some guy named Terrell Jennings. Boy, they don't seem to like Travion Henderson. And boy, do they seem to love Ramondre Stevenson, who keeps fumbling, and it does not matter. What can you add to that analysis of the Patriots backfield?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that we're in week 6 now and Stevenson is still fumbling and Vrabel is not benching him, I would not have believed you.
Vrabel's gone woke. Let's just be real.
I think he's a little woke. I think he is. And I was not, as a Travion Henderson drafter in several leagues, I was not banking on that. It's look, last week Stevenson led the backfield with 7 rushes to 6 rushes for both Gibson and Henderson. Of course, Gibson is done now for the year. Gibson was not running any routes basically this season, so I think you can expect the route running split to continue between Henderson and Stevenson. I did notice that Stevenson came in for goal line work against the Bills after Henderson had taken on the rest of the drive to get him down there. That's not a great sign for Hendo, as the kids are calling him. But hey, look, good game script, lots of positive game script here. Henderson might be able to do something, but it's not, you're not feeling good about playing him as a flex, even in like a deeper 12-team league.
We love drafting Drake May and Henderson on the same team because the only way Henderson gets on the field is when Drake May puts them up 40. And the fourth quarter is just all Henderson against practice squad players. So,
see, the Patriots staff and media's eyes were like lighting up talking about Terrell Jennings this week. So like, take that for what you will. This seems like anyone other than Travion Henderson right now. Travion, super volatile flex option. Kyle, New Orleans, are we starting Shaheed? Finally hits the long play. What about Juwan Johnson? They've given up the ghost. Taysom Hill is no longer called a tight end. I don't know if you've seen this. They're listing him at quarterback again. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Fantasy Services is already listed as a tight end. Awesome. Are we still starting Shaheed? We're still starting Juwan. What about the Black Swan of Taysom Hill?
Yeah, I don't think – I mean, sure, you can start Rashid Shaheed, right? But he got home last week with, I believe, 114 yards and a score on a 16% target share. He just truly is the very, very scantily used field stretcher and not that much else to his profile right now. Part of that is because Chris Olave leads the NFL in target share. He is a black hole of targets from which nothing can escape, which has kind of resulted in the Rashid Shaheed role shrinking. And over the past few weeks, Juwan Johnson's role as well, as in terms of routes, hasn't changed. Didn't change last week with both Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill healthy. In terms of targets, I think just 4 targets last week. Tight end's an ugly position. If the happy medium, right, is somewhere between his like 10 or 11 targets early in the year per game and 4 targets per game over the past 2 weeks, maybe you split the difference and it's 6. That's like already makes him at least a top 15 tight end. But you do need him to get back to somewhere closer to where he was in the first 3 weeks. Like I said, though, it's tight end. Do whatever you want. You're probably not going to do well anyways.
I thought it was very classy of Denny to leave town the week that Taysom Hill came back. I thought that was classy.
Oh, and on the Taysom Hill front, he played like 6 or 9 snaps or something. He's not like playable yet.
I have a Taysom Hill update, if you don't mind me sharing. Kellen Moore just a couple minutes ago said, quote, Taysom Hill is, quote, definitely available as a backup quarterback.
Yep. This is not a joke. They've listed him a quarterback again on the depth chart.
Oh
and
my
Kyle,
God. Okay, so like
I think that's a good sign, to be honest. He played 9 snaps. He had 6 carries. So if he's in the game, they're just giving him the ball.
Okay,
but he kind of has to be rostered, right? Because in every format, if he gets to play, like Spencer Rattler's 1 in, I think, like 9 in his career starts, he cannot survive the season, I don't think. There's a non-zero chance they go to Taysom Hill over Tyler Shuck, or they play a true committee, right?
That's right.
If that's the case, and you even get like just like committee quarterback type stuff, or like you're probably getting the 4th quarter of Taysom Hill, he's a top 5 tight end.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill makes our game beautiful, and Pat doesn't want to recognize that.
No, I do not. I do not at all. I want to move on immediately to another player who makes our game beautiful, Joe Flacco. The quarterback swapping Bengals head to Green Bay is roughly 2 touchdown underdogs, Denny. Kyle and I talked about it at length on Tuesday, but what is your take on the Flacco effect or lack thereof in the Queen City? Cincinnati's called the Queen City.
Guys, come on. This is not going to work like at all. I watched the show.
Right. Charlotte should be called the Queen City. Or were you talking about something else?
They're for some reason both called the Queen City. This is not.
I went to like a random town in Vermont, and they were like, "We're the Queen City." I was like, "Go home."
I watched your show on Tuesday, and the amount of coping you guys were doing about Flacco was.
Hey, I led with he's really bad. All right,
outrageous. I wanted to be there. I wanted to have been there and been like, stop. This is bad. It's bad. It's not going to work. Jake Browning's better.
Okay. Yeah. Timeout. Yeah. All right. We're going to have to stop you there. We're going to have to cut you off.
It's not going to work. I'm on board with Jake Browning is better. Slow your roll there.
Joe Flacco, 30th out of 35 qualifying quarterbacks in yards per attempt.
Well, I'm absolutely shocked. Jerry Jeudy cannot unlock Joe Flacco.
A little better than Jake Browning. I will say that. All right, here's what I want to say about the Bengals. It's just, honestly, for me, it's like a who cares situation. It's just going to be misery from here on out. The Bengals season's over. They might as well just bench
I actually don't agree. The Flacco thing, I'm starting to believe the copium a little more. He got the ball out quicker than any quarterback in football last year. He's still middle of the pack in it this year. I think behind this offensive line, they want someone who processes quickly. They want someone who can actually get the ball to their playmakers. And even a marginal upgrade over Jake Browning could make an absolutely massive difference for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
I hope so, but I have my doubts. I want to say this real quick. Bengals, they have 1 4th down attempt this season. 1. Okay, obviously the league
crazy for a team that loses every game.
The fewest in the league. They honestly they should do the right thing. They should be brave. They should never punt or kick the rest of the season. You just go for every 4th down.
I actually completely agree. If you're like a bad team, imagine how different. Like you would feel free. You would feel like, how people like, I licked a toad and then my mind became unlocked. Like if you just knew you had 4 downs, if you knew you always had 4 downs, think of how free.
Do you know how?
If you knew you had 4 toads, how many of them would you lick?
Do you know how freaked out opposing defensive coordinators would be if the Bengals just came out and be like, by the way, we are not punting ever in the rest of the season. Just do it, man.
To be fair, though, an opposing DC would be like, oh, no, you're throwing Joe Flacco? Oh, don't do it. No.
I really think the 4th down thing, everything comes back to Madden. When you play Madden, it doesn't matter what 4th down it is, the situation. When your opponent actually comes out to punt, you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank God. I cannot believe the snotty neighbor kid is actually punting. He hasn't punted in like 4, and it's a fake. And he easily converted it. I should have seen that coming. Oh damn!
And I'm down 4 scores.
Yeah, I'm losing 41-6. Kyle, will Jordan Love actually do anything cool in this matchup or no? Talk about a team committed to getting 1 lead and then sitting on the ball the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean they're like massive favorites, 2 touchdown favorites. I will note they have to get up 2 touchdowns somehow, and maybe that happens through the air because Jordan Love's playing good football this year. It just doesn't really matter when your team mostly wins games quite easily, and they want to, in neutral and when they're up, obviously run the football at a disproportionate rate. I will say, even if they ultimately don't pass a lot, which I think is probably true, sets up as like maybe a good spot for Matthew Golden to finally get home. They played him in a very different role. They were on bye week last week, right? So it was technically 2 weeks ago, if I remember correctly. But they played him in a very different role 2 weeks ago. He ran 75% of his routes from the slot. That resulted in season highs in targets, catches, and yards. And the Bengals have given up the third most yards, the eighth most catches to slot receivers this year. Again, it's a 1 week sample on something that Matthew Golden, I don't know if that's something they plan on doing every game, but if they did, it would be a really good spot for him. So I think maybe give it 1 more week for Golden.
Denny, you accused Kyle and I of coping and Joe Flacco. Do you have any good Chase Brown cope?
I so much 24? Good. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't intend to do this. It just happened. But I'm coping so hard on Chase Brown. Last week, Brown was targeted on 42% of his pass routes against Detroit in runaway negative game script. That's crazy. Through 5 games, Brown has seen a target on 29% of his routes. That's one of the highest rates in the league among running backs. So you guys say, Flacco, Super Bowl winning quarterback, they're going to the promised land, all this. But if he is a guy who can get the ball out quickly, who's it going to go to? It's going to guys like Chase Brown or Jamar Chase in the short areas. You could get away with it even if Chase Brown does nothing on the ground.
Then it started getting blurry there. I think that means the ball's going to Jamar, going to T. We're going to the promised land. We're going to Chargers at Dolphins. The seriously wounded Chargers head back to the East Coast for what feels like the millionth different time this season, Kyle, to take on the Dolphins. The Bolts already have one of the league's highest pass rates over expected. Shocking. I think it was the second highest in the whole league. Can they kick that up even higher without Amari and Hampton?
Yeah, I mean, in the first 2 weeks of the season, when Hampton was struggling to get anything going, they had a mind-bending 14% pass rate over expected, a rate so high it really could not sustain itself. But since then, they've dropped in weeks 3, 4, and 5 as Hampton got going to a plus 1% pass rate over expected, which is still above average. Like I said earlier, the NFL's average is not actually 0 this year. So they're still pass first, but it has been a stark change from when they viewed Herbert as the entirety of their offense to mixing it up a little bit more, as Hampton, I think, was more successful. To me, that's a very clear explanation as to why they're running the football more. Obviously, they don't have him. They don't have Najee. They're down to their 3rd and 4th string running backs. I don't know if they get up to 14%. Like I said, that's a rate that's hard to achieve in a single game, even if you're trying. But I do think, like we saw last year, as their backfield completely fell apart, they have to go more pass heavy. And Pat, you mentioned this weeks ago, I believe, is Jim Harbaugh has so much faith and reverence in his quarterback. Like you said, talks about him like he's Paul Bunyan, right? That I think in a situation in which Go ahead.
I think I stole that from Kevin Clark, by the way. So
yeah, you did, I believe, relay that to us from, I believe, an appearance you made on Clark's podcast.
I don't know.
I mentioned it. No, you don't. I'll hype you up. Don't worry. So I believe that in a spot in which I don't want to say they don't have any chance to run the ball, but just when you're on Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal, you are certainly not incentivized to run the football a lot. I do think they'll get somewhere between that plus 1% that they've been for the past few weeks and then insane plus 14% they were for the first 2 games.
Just give a super quick rehash, Kyle, too. Hassan Haskins versus Kamani Vidal. Where on Tuesday we basically said you're trying to project things. You're projecting goal line carries for Hassan Haskins, maybe some receptions for Kamani Vidal. Neither's an RB2 off the bat. They're kind of shaky flexes. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the quick and dirty is that they cut one of these players and the other player is Hassan Haskins. Kamani Vidal has since been signed to the active roster, as you do when you're going to need him for at least a month, even as just a backup. I will also note that when Justin Herbert was on the field last week, they got so bad they pulled him for Trey Lance at the end. In the snaps Herbert was on the field, we had Hassan Haskins out-snap Kamani Vidal 14-8. He was also on the field for more passing downs as well, which is what you would think would be the Kamani Vidal role if they were going to find a role for him. So I'm not even sure we can 100% count on a clear 3rd downs PPR type of role for Kamani Vidal. That's still the hope, but I don't think it's something we can pencil in. So I think Haskins is the only startable player in this backfield.
That could have been the classic 2 mid-game injury, Kyle. Now that they can put in a game plan, they'll have passing plays for Kamani Vidal, but it's modest, but Hassan Haskins does have the rankings advantage. Denny, Darren Waller, fool's gold, or is this something real? Doubled the snaps last week, still only to 32. 5 catches, 78 yards, a 3rd touchdown in 2 weeks. Is this happening?
Real quick, I watched a replay of the Panthers-Dolphins game from last week. I don't know who the announcer was, but this guy must have had Waller in fantasy because
no, this guy is famous. He's apparently a screamer. Adam would know about him. He's a Charlotte Hornets announcer. Apparently, he screams.
He screams
nonstop.
I believe it's Eric Collins. You're right. The Hornets.
He's a screamer. He's Gus Johnson 2.7 that no one wanted.
Waller caught like an intermediate pass in the first quarter. and he's like, Darren Waller, like just screaming into the microphone.
I'm glad we're not going crazy because I had this game on news or whatever, and I was thinking the same thing. I was like, this is pretty insane.
When he was pronounced, he said to his last name no less than 150 times in that game. Very proud that he can pronounce it. It was honestly the most irritating announcing I've ever heard. All right.
Like, so bro, this is the number 7 CBS booth. Stop being so extra.
Yes, it was it was very extra. Waller, third highest target per route run rate among tight ends over the past 2 weeks. He is a thing. He continues drawing targets at a good clip against the Panthers in week 5. He ran almost 70% of the routes against the Panthers. No Tyreek means that, he's the number 3 behind Waddle and behind Achane. 11.6 air yards per target. So, he's not a cheat code. He's not, Jake Ferguson scam artist, He's
a splash play wide receiver. He truly just is playing wide receiver. He barely runs in line right now.
I'm trying not to overstate it. If his hamstrings can hold up, I think he could be one of the more important pickups of the season.
I agree. It's kind of feeling that way. In a horrible position, you got to. It's the classic. Not reacting is not a choice. You have to react to what you've seen. What you've seen is a player with a really long pedigree, long injury history, coming out and playing as the best version of himself.
Yeah,
he's a top 10 tight end. Darren, you could get burned, but I don't know. You got him for nothing. Darren Waller, top 10 tight end right now. The Rams jet across the continent to visit a Ravens team falling on hard times. Kyle, we'll keep this one simple. Which Ravens can actually be in lineups right now? Derrick Henry does not project as a Derrick Henry game script. We're starting him still because he's in any given Sunday. He could have 200 yards running back. Who else, though, are we starting from the Baltimore Ravens?
It's just Zay Jones. His 25% target share last
Zay
week.
Flowers.
No.
Let me be clear. Zay
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. It's just Zay Flowers. I just have written Zay in my notes. It's just Zay Flowers. 25% target share last week. Not dominant, right? He was actually much higher in the first 2 or 3 weeks, but it is certainly enough that if they're going to be, quote, when they're in negative game script versus the Rams, he'll get a lot of targets. I think he got home with a long one last week, gets up to like 12 PPR points. If he gets in the end zone, it's a better game. Not many opportunities to get in the end zone when Cooper Rush is your starting quarterback, but he's seeing the ball enough that I think he will survive the Cooper Rush era. Certainly thrive. He will not. Big dog, 15 attempts, and he does score last week. Guys who, even when they're getting, boat race, they got killed by the Texans, can still get 15 carries. You still have to start that guy, but I truly do think he's probably just an RB2 at this point. Like, he is a game script dependent running back who hasn't been efficient since week 1 and doesn't have his team's electric starting quarterback under center, 7.5 point underdogs. I think he just is an RB2. I think things should improve post-bye. Hopefully Lamar's back then.
Yeah, he's an RB2 right now, inarguable. So game script sensitive. This will be maybe bad, but then it's the bye, like you said. Then it's the Bears. Then it's the Dolphins. That's where you hope Derrick Henry gets his fantasy season on track. Denny, any updates in the Rams offense? This one's looking fairly settled too. Anything cool on Devontae Adams? The backfield last week, Kyron went back above 90% of the snaps. Blake Corum dropped a pitch, went under 10% of the snaps. And also we're streaming Matthew Stafford. Yeah, he's forcing his way into the QB1 conversation.
Yeah, I think you're streaming Stafford for sure. I did find some cool data actually on Devontae. He has a slight lead in air yards on the season over Puka, which is a little surprising. So I looked at first read targets among like all receivers, right? So Puka's at the top by a good margin, obviously. And then Adams is 6th. So you have the 1st and the 6th in first read targets. The ball's going nowhere else in this offense. The fumbling stuff for Blake Corum could mean maybe some more action for Kyren Williams. I will say going into week 5, Kyren was running around in 48% of the team's dropbacks. That jumped to 77% in week 5 against the Niners. Of course, that leads to 10 targets. That leads to the receiving touchdowns. I'm trying to ignore the touchdowns because those don't happen. But if that sticks, it's a new profile for Kyren Williams.
I think what we saw is young player fumbles once, and Sean McVay, who was trying to be brave, make it a 2-back backfield. Like, all right, never mind. Yeah, that was, even though Kyron's fumble was far worse. And
it was catastrophic. By the way, I think he was crying on the bench, which I'm not making fun. No, it actually is. I thought it was refreshing to see a guy care so much that he's crying.
Oh, Marvin Harrison Jr., you don't have to go too far in the past, cried because he was so relieved to score one touchdown.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so relieved to score one touchdown. It's a good time to take a break before we get into the politics of male crying. We'll be right back after this. Powerhouses collide on Sunday evening when Jared Goff and the Lions face Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Tune in to NBC and Peacock at 7 p.m. Eastern as we lead you up to kickoff at Arrowhead Stadium. Fresh off upsetting the Eagles, the Broncos head overseas to London, where they will now be expected to demolish the Jets. Denny, that was a stirring Week 5 victory. The Broncos still aren't stirring much emotion in fantasy leagues. Beyond Cortland Sutton and J.K. Dobbins, who do we even want in our fantasy lineups, including Bo Nix? I have him outside the top 12 this week, Denny.
Yeah, I mean, you can get away with Nix. It's just a good overall environment for the Jets. I'm sorry, for the Broncos. For the Broncos. Jets are giving out the league's highest dropback EPA through Week 5. They're giving up the highest adjusted yards per attempt this season. They rank 29th in pressure rate. They're going against an elite Broncos offensive line. So Bo Nix should have all day to operate. The Jets also profile somehow as a run funnel, despite being so deficient in the secondary. I think a lot of guys can get here for the Broncos. So I think you do play Dobbins, Sutton. In deeper leagues, maybe you get crazy. You throw Troy Franklin in there. Who knows?
Just only the 14th London game of the season. I think the NFL can do better on that front. Kyle, has Mason Taylor become a tight end one? I think it's 19 targets over the past 2 weeks. He's tied for 6th in tight end targets. And how complete was Brees's takeover in Braylon Allen's absence? I wrote that question before I saw he played the exact same amount of snaps that he did before Braylon Allen's injury. But yeah, latest on Mason Taylor, who's looking good. Latest on Brees Hall, who's looking fine, if not maybe consolidating work as much as he should be.
Yeah, in terms of Mason Taylor, the role over the past 3 weeks has been really strong for a tight end. A 24% target share while running, as far as tight ends go, we'll call it all of the routes. He was still running all the routes in the first 2 weeks and had a 7% target share. Like, truly looks like he's barely playing any football if you just log into your favorite targets website. I think, to me at least, the very obvious explanation there is that he was dealing with an ankle injury and he's a rookie tight end who missed much of training camp. Then he kind of tweaked it again early in the year. He seems to be fully back from it, and he is earning targets like the way you would expect a team without a second receiver to do so, even if he is a tight end. So to me, yeah, probably is a tight end one. I do think there's a team that, like, at their heart, they obviously want to run the football a lot. And when they do pass the football, it's very hit or miss, obviously, and a lot of it goes to Garrett Wilson for the hits, but targets are targets, especially at tight end. So I do think he's at least a top 12 fantasy option, if not really, maybe not a top 8, just because the touchdowns are probably unlikely to come. And they're probably just going to lose another football game here. Tight end one is fair to say. As far as you mentioned it, you were like, Kyle, is this rug underneath my feet? And then you pulled it out from under yourself anyways. But so to your point, Isaiah Davis comes in, steps into not exactly the Braylon Allen role, sort of a role of his own where he plays 44% of the team snaps. He logs a 44% route rate, catches 3 passes. So he has this part-time, predominantly pass catching role. I believe he saw only 1 carry. Brees still sees 14 carries, looks electric on a per touch basis again. And I will note that I believe Brees briefly left this game with, I don't want to say undisclosed injury, right? Just something that wasn't even major enough to get him listed as like questionable to return. But he did miss some time because of that. He's not on the injury report right now. Could have been as simple as cramping. So I do think maybe that 44%, like nearly half of the snaps for Isaiah Davis, I don't know if we'll see that again. If you gave me the bet of over 55.5% of the snaps for Brees in this upcoming game, I would take the over. I do think he'll consolidate a little more work, unlike he did last week.
Mason Taylor, just too, we wondered all summer. We kind of knew we might not know who was going to be the number 2 target behind Garrett Wilson. Right now, it's Mason Taylor. Just a ton of targets. They're a poor quality and a bad offense. Mason Taylor, though, worth an ad across the board. I'm playing 2 of the worst brands of football going right now. The Titans and Raiders meet up in Vegas, accompanied by like a 41.5 game total. Just ghastly stuff. Kyle, is Calvin Ridley back on the up and up, or was that a one-off? Like I said, you finally get the courage to bench, I don't know, maybe even drop Calvin Ridley, and of course he finally has a usable game. What are we saying about Cal?
I mean, so a 27% target share is really good. 41% of the air yards, really, really good. And obviously he actually makes good on those targets, those opportunities, with 131 yards, I believe, on 5 catches. Early in the season, though, the problem was not his target earning acumen. Like, maybe he wasn't dominating targets like we would think, but he was seeing enough that in other offenses, it would be worth playing him as a wide receiver too. And then in week 4, they completely scaled his rollback. He ran less than half the routes. They immediately said afterwards he was banged up mid-game, and they were basically forced to take him out at some points. And he's healthier. coming into week 5. And obviously he again earns targets. To me, the problem has never been that he doesn't get targets. It's the quality of those targets is as low as it gets. And to be fair, he draws low quality targets in his nature. He is not really great at getting open. He is actually 5th worst in ESPN's open score, and he's catching passes from a quarterback who is charted with the 3rd lowest catchable throw rate. That is Cam Ward, obviously. So he doesn't really generate separation. His quarterback is, in terms of the charting, really inaccurate right now. I think it still means that when everything comes together, you can hit multiple splash plays in one game, but the valleys are going to be extended periods of time. So I'm probably still not trying to play him.
Maybe he's at least finally putting some distance back between him and Alec Ayumaner. And Adam lays out here his receiving prop, 45.5 for Cal, as I love to call him. Over or under?
Under.
Over.
Instant speed of light. Under.
He said no. I'm going to hit the over on that one.
I need it. Cam Ward, it's like real bleak. I could list 50 stats, but I'll list just one.
Well, yeah, Denny, his signature play of the year was a interception that he threw. Was his best play.
Dead last in on target rate. And I watched some of that game, some highlights from that game last week, and wow, he is quite inaccurate.
So yeah, he is horrible offensive environment for the Titans, Denny. They claim they're making changes to the offense. We excited about Gunnar Helm getting steamed for the 2nd week in a row. We're excited about Tyjae Spears, played 25% of the snaps. They say more is coming this weekend.
I don't know. Look.
Yeah, whatever. If you don't want to talk about that.
No, I do. Because I love sicko tight end stuff. But this is real sick. Gunnar Helm and Chigakonkwo both ran 54% of the routes in week 5. Helm was targeted on 22% of those routes. Chig at 17%. I don't know. I think Helm is probably the better play at this point, but you're just absolutely desperate if you're playing either of these guys. And then as for the backfield, you want me to get into the backfield real quick?
Yeah, I do.
With Tyjae Spears? All right. This will be quick. Spears ran 24% of the routes last week, did not see a single target. Pollard, 56% route rate. Pollard had 14 carries. Spears had 4 carries, and Pollard had one of his best games of the season. 3 of his 14 carries went for over 10 yards. He's cooking. So I guess Spears maybe lit a fire under him a little bit. It's just that this team is so awful, like efficiency wise, that you can't play Spears. You could barely play Pollard at this point.
The only thing I'll say is like the classic boomer, like 1994 sports columnist analysis. Maybe they needed anything to go right, and then it did. Maybe that'll loosen things up a little bit. Maybe like one good thing happened, so then more good things will happen. That's like really the only case you can construct for that.
I feel like I just cracked open the Washington Post in 1994.
Bob Ryan, no offense to Bob Ryan, 1994 Bob Ryan column that I just plagiarized. If Brock Bowers is out, he's yet to resume practicing. Kyle, are Jacoby and Genty the only Raiders for starting, and why is the answer yes?
Yeah, the answer should probably be yes. We've talked about a lot of deep cut plays. Trey Tucker's probably even less of a deep cut than some of the players we've talked about. 18% target share is fine. 25% air yard share is fine. Seeing just as many of the team's red zone targets as Jacoby Myers. And I guess, talking about ugly plays, Michael Mayer did not play last week. He is practicing in full. He missed last week's concussion. He probably will just play all the snaps in Brock Bowers' place. I don't think Brock Bowers is playing this week. So I do think he just takes on at least the snaps role and maybe some of the targets too. We just talked about Gunnar Helm. I promise you we can talk about Michael Mayer. He's just going to play a bunch of snaps on a team that is not very good, but that's worth something. That's better than you can say for Helm or Chig. So I
thought you were going to say Albert O, by the way. Albert O.
Dude,
crazy last year. Albert O, quote, going psycho.
I know, man. I wish I would have gotten to talk about it because, man, that's my guy right there. You and me, big Mizzou fans. That's actually our guy. I'm happy for him to get on the board.
I wish I'd put that in a group text when I had the chance last Sunday. Albert O going psycho. What?
I truly could not have told you.
How did you get this number?
If you had told me that, I'd be like, oh, UFL season started already? I thought they did in spring.
Final game and a matchup not even the AFC North's mother could love. The Browns and Steelers square off in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with a 37.5 game total. I can barely get that out without choking. Although totals were going lower in the second half of last season, this is probably just a preview of things to come. Denny, what was different for the Browns and Dylan Gabriel's first start under center last Sunday that you definitely watched from the opening whistle to the last?
I grinded it. I watched it forwards and backwards, actually.
Wow.
I do that for every game. You try to divine secret messages in the tape, watching it backwards.
Actually, if you sync it up with the wall, Shedeur Sanders gets a few snaps.
That's right.
I'm glad you know about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Browns were really run heavy last week. They had the second lowest neutral pass rate in week 5, 38% neutral pass rate. Dylan Gabriel only took 2 sacks on 15 pressures against the Vikings. That's pretty good. That's way better than your guy Flacco. He had an ADOT, his average depth of target is 6.5. That's in the Kyler range. 37% of Dylan Gabriel's throws went to his tight ends. Harold Fannin Jr., the 5th, had an ADOT of 1.
No.
And David Njoku had an ADOT of 4.4.
Oh. All right, just cancel the season. I mean, what's the point of this?
Sim to end. Sim to the end of the season.
Or hashtag free Shedeur.
Not sim to end. I'm going to go sim to the end.
Stefanski was like, was having none of that. No. I mean, he was this close to being like, it's Bailey's happy season, brother.
Yeah, can't say the mime press conference from Shedeur is going to work out the way he intended. Anyways, we're not here to talk about Shedeur Sanders. We're here to talk about, what's this say? Jaylen Warren. All right, he's back this week. Kyle, Steelers backfield. If Jaylen Warren returns, can the Steelers coaching staff possibly unsee what Kenneth Gainwell did in week 4? That is a coach's dream. Kenneth Gainwell coming in and making you look smart.
Yeah, I mean, I will say they had fully committed to Jaylen Warren over the previous 2 weeks before they sat. Basically, I would say they just kind of sat him down for what was week 4, right? They sat him down. No, they sat him down in week 4. Sat him down in week 4 to give him the week 5 bye. I'm having to retrack. I'm having to watch the games backwards as Denny does. Yeah. So they sat him down in week 4, I think just so he could rest to full health because they got their week 5 bye. Before that, in the final 2 games before he got hurt or before he missed the game with an injury, 69% of the team carries over those 2 games was top 10 in the NFL. 27% target share, trailed only Christian McCaffrey over the 2 games in which they fully committed to him. He was getting an elite, I said, Christian McCaffrey was the only player who saw more of his team's targets in what would have been, I think, weeks 2 and 3. That's really strong. And it gives him room for Kenneth Gainwell to take a little bit out of the pie and for Jaylen Warren to still be an RB2. And I think, to be fair, Kenneth Gainwell, 1, they tried to make him a thing in week 1. And 2, in week 4, he earned more work. He looked pretty good. I think got to 99 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, got over 100 yards from scrimmage because he was solid through the air as well. So I do think he probably gets more work in week 6 than he did when Jaylen Warren was at the peak of his powers in weeks 2 and 3. I still think you're starting Warren and you're not really looking back.
You can start him as a flex. I do think the Gainwell thing probably took him out of the RB2 running for now. Just coach it. They're not going to be able to unsee that, man. That's probably the best thing that's ever happened to Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's been waiting for that for years. By the way, Kyle, so you're saying play Warren over McCaffrey. That's what you're saying.
Which game? Now the problem is McCaffrey not good at all between the tackles these days. But you said this, Denny. You said this at one point, and I coincidentally wrote it in a blurb 10 minutes before we got on the show or something. Every single week where they don't have these receivers, he's going to try and set the targets record for a running back, which I think you said was 20 or something.
20,
19? Yeah, he's going to try and get it. It's unreal.
It could have happened.
Well, it was absolutely stunning that Kyle knew what the wall is. The kids are all right.
Man, that's awesome.
Kyle stood the wall, still apparently in the culture, the greater culture. We're done with the show. We hope we got to everything you wanted to hear about. If not, check out Denny's regression files. Check out his funnel report. Check out Kyle's 10 stats. Check out his stardom sit-em. Check out my rankings. Check out previous episodes of the Rotoworld Football Show. Check out Denny on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern when he takes your questions in a live Q&A. So for Denny Carter, for Kyle Dvorchak, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for listening. Denny will be with you on Friday. Then we'll be back with you on Sunday night.